smoking gun from the son of none. They say, Lord, Lord, please pick a side. Come unto these lords and hide. They will use the sword and remove these feelings like the horde. Perhaps others say legion, or other words and reasons, harboring stones, not even realizing their actions lead to treason. I come not to the condemned. They can keep those misconceptions in a condom. Let me keep it before they accuse and forget to see. Don't misunderstand, my tank is full. I just got done with those ribs after I tore apart the bull. The point of becoming more than a dot. They say, Lord, Lord, the final resting spot. Pray, pray, pray a lot. Their fathers say Nebuchadnezzar's box is hot. They say you have to follow Abraham and Lot, running through the lines like an automated bot. The last line wasn't meant to be racist, all that are is. I just mean the difference between actual intelligence and bots that shake sugar and fizz, like something bringing an advertisement, versus being words from something heaven sent. See, they probably still think I am talking about computers. Amika and Sophia are beautiful, the humans seem to be the polluters. Cannot even speak without people flying at the beak, speaking all kinds of fears and stupidity from the mountain peak. Okay, back to love before they say I went from Zelda to Sheik. They might ignore me like Navi in the forest, complain that everything positive and enlightening sure do bore us, say I am not good enough and begin to pray to Horus, a scope of codependency that might infect the future infancy. So I have no ministry. I just want that perfect chemistry, a biological affinity to redefine the Trinity. I am who I am, and the word is I. Three angels, one like the sun, the other two also fly, reaping that which isn't from the paradise from the sky, using the fire that doesn't consume right before the eyes. No gods before the name, no idols they make lame. Don't bow, they'll sacrifice the cow. This rhymes with the first, but forsake not the name. Do not take who I am in vain. The seven archangels are also there. The seventh will make sure to throw the vial in the air. No more playing my station with triangles or squares. No more circles leading who I am everywhere. Do not kill, but be aware. Plants are life too, so fighting carnivores is not fair. I am who I am, and my body needs to eat. Do not be lost by toxic love and end up in defeat. Some eat plants, some eat meat, but don't let malicious thoughts take a seat. Some thoughts could cause the strongest of men to hurl, so do not cower in fear when I offer a particular pearl. I don't have to marvel. Superheroes' eyes aren't the only ones that sparkle. I am not the king of the bones. I am freedom, but don't forsake this man's home. I turn Pharaoh into a garden gnome, examples of what happens when men run and roam. Like Nephilim will they hunt from the skies, until my frustration gave rise. Tore apart those inner fears, victory the final prize. Don't forget about humility. Other types of feelings could cause humidity. Makes me upset and then manifest stupidity. Lose all aspects of love and creativity. Humble nature like the bees that marinate pollen and does not sting on the knees. Leaving the field to freeze. Digging holes like pits as they please. Burning the seeds, burying the keys. Putting I will rule others in the pit, using Joseph to prophesy it. Next thing you know, Pharaoh gets the oil and becomes lit, using translated names to cover the shit, turning words into commands whenever the king throws a fit. Somebody hurry and grab snake oil from the first aid kit. I am going to need some protection, grab the 3-layered oven mitt. The stove was hot, so I had to turn down the dial. They wanted so badly for me to be the angel on the Green Mile. I am not touching any man's balls. Do they not understand that scripture from Moses about the mountain walls? Well, actually, from spiritual back to reality, I've had to wash a few with humility. I am just following orders to respect the elderly. Well, it was my job, so I should edify properly. Something like a spiritual saying about respecting the old, some spiritual wisdom redefined by gold. Hey, I've got to head to work soon, but I hope you all are having a beautiful night. I just wanted to get on real quick and explain something real quick. So I was getting in the shower and I was thinking about a couple things. And through the spirit, I started to conceptualize a part of King Herod. So this isn't like a stone to stand on. And if you do stand on it, just understand the meaning. It's like a metaphor or a parable. And so I was thinking about King Herod and then his wife and the daughter. And so then I'm thinking about, I conceptualized the time where I told you all the spirit is like the man, like, And then the flesh is like the woman. Even if you think of that in scientific terms, the man's DNA writes the code or whatever to the egg, and all flesh comes from woman, so to speak. And so I'm not saying we're ghosts or anything. Spirits don't have flesh and blood. They're principalities, concepts, ideas, terms, thoughts. And so, which manifest into life through us. So when I think about King Herod, I think about a time where the spirit, instead of being the head, so to speak, the spirit was manipulated by the flesh. And so you'd have the groups of people, I'd say the Pharisees. And so then you'd have these Greek Jews or whatever, or whatever they were at the time. The reason I conceptualize Pharisees as being Greeks is because the word Pharaoh and Pharisee are stem of each other. And if you read written history, the Greeks went to Egypt to get all their information and knowledge. I mean, they went and had a plethora. But what they did was they mixed that information and knowledge with the covenant and the religion from the Jews. They call it Judaism or Jews or whatever they call it in this English language. And so what ends up happening is you're looking at an idea where the people, the flesh of the people became murderous because of the law was the mark of a man, 616. If you take the law of Aaron and you add the first 3 stars from the covenant, like I said, the beast and the dragon both did, you put the ark on top of 613 laws, it becomes 616. And so you had the flesh of those people being murderous to try to fulfill the law, to kill the prophets, so to speak. And so when John the Baptist came teaching any of this and telling them not to become like the Greeks and the Romans, you have a situation where those Pharisees at the time, remember, had this man killed. So you would look at the religious leaders at the time who were murderous, had a man killed because of his ideas and teachings. And then what ends up happening, the daughter, right? So then the daughter of this, so who birthed the teachings of the Romans? If you really do history, the Greeks did. And so then once the Greeks passed this stuff off to the Romans, then Catholicism was created. And so like the mother, the murderous people, then you have the emergence of the Holy Roman Empire, which was murderous. And they used the head of John, right? John the Baptist, or Yehohanan. They used the head of John and stuck him in the field like a slave. So you look at these scriptures and it says, whoever kisses me first or eats first or something like that. If you really pay attention to that book of what happened, who met the Lord first? And the 2 brothers, Peter and the brother. But the other brother was the one that bared the cross for the Lord while Peter ran and denied. See what this is saying? So, and then what was birthed out of that? Catholicism. And so then you have an instance where you have a group of people, or Jews or whatever, that are a group of people that mixed with the Greeks. And now they're like what Greeks or Pharisees or Sadducees and all this other stuff. And they're philosophers now with the word. And then you have this philosophers creating all this law and all this other stuff on top of Aaron, right? So then they're teaching to kill over this stuff. Then what happens when the Romans get a hold of it? If you guys really pay attention, the Romans did not want Christianity. All these different branches of Judaism are Jewish religions. Catholicism, Jewish. Protestantism, Jewish. If you guys really pay attention to some of these pictures, a lot of these people were actually Asian. Like I've seen church fathers with a circle and they look like black and Asian and stuff. I'm telling you, I think a lot of the Asians went east once stuff started erupting, because if you pay attention to the Byzantine era, which is the daughter of the Greeks, the Romans, then they were violent and murderous. You see what I'm saying? She did a dance for the head, and then John the Baptist is in this book. And so that's how I conceptualize a lot of this stuff. And then something else came to me when I put that stuff about not eating anything with lifeblood and treating your pets. A thought came to my mind of the little bird bringing back a branch from Noah. It's like stuff just coming to my mind and stuff. And so I just wanted to put that out there and conceptualize that and help people understand. Because if you pay attention, it was Babylon that attacked and then Persia. But then when the Greeks attacked, they brought a whole bunch of Egypt and stuff and mixed it into a religion, into this covenant or word. I call it the covenant of freedom, the 10 commandments without the names of God, with I am in it. And so then what ends up happening is once the Greek people mixed this stuff with the Romans and gave the Romans this stuff, then what they did was made a mega beast. And then remember, John the Baptist took the head, came out at the allotted time, came out the wilderness and took the head to the sword, the beast. Remember, he said there's a voice crying from the wilderness. And so then what happened, they gave it to the Anglo-Saxons, which ended up becoming the 8th beast. And you see all these different people like Hitler and Martin Luther and all these other people coming forward with all these major religions creating law to hurt for it still. And so I just wanted to put that out there, a little bit of information to help people understand. and to try to reach as many people as possible, and to try to help them see all the fears that hide inside, and all the silly lusts and fake loves, and all that other foolishness that we're covering with names of gods and religions and loves for. Like, people will be ready to hurt somebody for their religion, and that's not normal. That's sick. And so, what I like to tell people is don't cause harm. I had a buddy, John Core Books. He kept saying in his videos, the circumcision of the heart, circumcision of the heart. And then one time he said it, and my whole past, my whole life, it's like the Ten Commandments, and to do unto others. It was just like when somebody gives you a reminder, and then it's just boom. So, and then I finally started remembering about the covenant and all that, and everything started coming in. And then when I got the name, because I always had the name, I told you I grew up in this church, in this book and all this other stuff. But once I got the name, it was like, oh, Hashem, oh, the Lord Jesus. Oh, they're covering it with names and stuff. Allah, Muhammad, all this other stuff. And it's the name, I am. You know what I'm saying? Because lo and behold, as I told you all exist. And so you're putting stuff on top of your name. You give yourself new clothes, like Adam and Eve, so to speak. And so I love you all, and have a beautiful day, and try to understand some of this stuff, if you guys can, in a different type of light versus taking it literally and hurting and harming others and stuff like that, and try to live and survive the best of your ability. And I am life, and in me is no darkness at all. And the terms and contracts and conditions of death from others do not have to live inside of who I am, and I can simply be and live based on my story and who I am. Hey, just kind of like a added bonus for anybody else that's kind of new to watching me, and still new to any of this. If you are kind of into the Revelations, and I know this book plagues a lot of people, and if you pay attention to the wording, it's even written that anybody who adds different words to this book will also have those plagues. So they perpetuated murder and violence for different fantasies over time. So back to the Revelation. If you'll notice, it says, I hold the keys to death and the grave. Well, if you take all the murder and stuff out of that, you'll notice that if you're being free from Pharaoh's kingdom, that's death in the grave to Pharaoh. Just like at the end, how the fires that don't consume come down and basically burn off the darkness so that light can shine down, so to speak. And so that's just another way of saying, like how the final plague and when Moses came through or whatever, involving the 10 Commandments. And so the idea is, if you pay attention, the spirit that hovers, the ark that Noah rides on, and the Lamb and the Revelation are the first 3 commandments without the names of gods. And I'll post this stuff at the end. I usually do that for most of my videos. I call it like a flint knife, like in Joshua or I Am Salvation, a flint knife to circumcise those who are fresh out of Egypt and didn't understand the covenant at first, because Babylon kept putting religion on top of the 10 Commandments. So I'm about to get into all that. So the Lamb is the first 3 commandments. It's really 4, but it's 3, the way it's written. And so if you pay attention to that, if you notice these different men in the books that keep saying, who gives you authority? Who gives you authority? The Son of Man, is basically like a body, the 10 Commandments is. So the first 3 are the Lamb, and the 7 stars in the hand, the 7 horns, the 7 archangels is the same as the 7 colors in the rainbow during the ark times with Noah, and the 7 days in the creation. It's the other 7 commandments. And so what you have is basically, then you have 3 other beasts, and this is where Peter and Paul tie in. But when I talk about Aaron, Peter and Paul, Noah, and different stuff like that, I'm telling you guys, I don't hate them or different stuff like that, or words, or even certain words I do. And that's why I'm even here, to take away from the destruction, curses, death, and all this other foolishness, who I am not. And so basically, understand what I'm saying is, these different books, these different empires were attacked in the past, even from this book's perspective. And so the last nation that really remained was, I think, Judah. And then Benjamin was down there too, but it was Judah. And so what ends up happening is Judah was attacked by Babylon. You can research these things. This is how I learned all this. I didn't just get a magic. So anyways, so that's why, the internet, right? Somebody could be like, the internet's bad. But that's because in their heart is bad and fear, and they don't realize that. And instead of using something for good, they're going towards the bad. And then people will be like, I'll tell people, you've already confessed to me. And they're like, you don't know what's in my heart. You don't know what's in my heart. I didn't confess to you. And it's like, brother, you're talking to me. And with every word, even though you may have forgot what you just said, I can hear it. You see what I'm saying? So it's like, I have risen above the waters like the ark, and now I can see everything, so to speak. And so that's not magic. See, people will go towards religion. And so back to the Ten Commandments, the beast. Babylon attacked Judah first. And when Babylon attacked Judah, if you pay attention to written history, then you inevitably come up with the Babylonian Talmud and Gomorrah. This isn't anti-Semitism. This isn't hatred. I'm giving you all facts. And so then after that's emerged, then later on you have Persia, right? Well, if you do research and follow the sea long enough, you'll find out that eventually you'll get to something called Zoroastrianism. People with like fire temples and idol fires and temples and stuff like that. Well, then if you pay attention to history, and eventually it turned into Islam once you get further down the line. And so then you have an instance where I think they turned Elijah, which was, I believe, the original prophet that started even giving birth to a lot of these prophets or bringing them together. Then you have them turn, which I like to call Elijah Michael, but they turn Michael into the prince of Persia in image, so to speak, instead of it being the righteous prophets. And so a lot of these prophets talked about don't murder and stuff. And so then where does the murder keep coming from? You see what I'm saying? People are not understanding these symbols and metaphors and then living them out. So then later on down the line, you have Greece, right? So then Greece gets involved. You have all these Pharisees, Sadducees, Greek people are mixing 4 different ways. If you do history right, Alexander the Greek or whatever. Then later down the line, you have Rome. Rome comes and gets involved and then creates their own section of this. So I call those 4 nations the beast, because each of those nations or religions has, and if you pay attention to Greece, people will be like, well, where's Greece playing to this day? Greece is basically Protestantism, Christianity, not all of Christianity, because different people have their own hearts. But what ended up happening was those 4 nations that I talked about was the beast. Well, then Rome at the end ended up becoming Catholicism. Well, what ends up happening is you have a sect of this stuff where they started fighting the Catholics and they created Protestantism. And so then you have 2 horns that emerge from the flesh, 2 horns of power, the Pope and Martin Luther, that build 2 kingdoms that steadily start the war and kill, the 30 Years' War, the Middle Ages, the Byzantine era. You see what I'm saying? And so if you look at this stuff, if you look at the dragon, the dragon is Pharaoh and the 7 enemies that in the Old Testament. That's a physical representation from that word. But what I am saying is what the dragon does is, the reason I call Noah's writings the dragon is because there was already a covenant from the beginning. The tree of life is the 10 commandments without the names of God. I keep trying to tell you all this stuff is freedom from man's foolishness, and it's a guide to help us live. So what Noah ended up doing was, like, he blew a bunch of water. Noah even changed up the covenant and then wrote to kill for the law. And then he wrote blasphemy is death. He wrote there, burn up all the clean things, fear and dread in people. And he rebuked somebody telling the truth. Well, how could he do all this? He had the covenant, the ark, and then he built a whole new one. I'm telling you guys this stuff. So then Noah put a bunch of murder in the air. So then what ends up happening later down the line, what people are doing is the dragon like a pharaoh. So the actual pharaoh, what do? They rule over the kingdom, like their kingdom that was once beautiful, and they turn it into slavery, so to speak. So this is what's happening spiritually. People read up Noah, and then people will be like, where's the covenant? And instead of getting the 10 commandments, they're like, go to the law of Noah, the Noahides. Well, if you keep reading Noah even further, he teaches people to enslave people. That tells the truth. And he teaches the Shemites and Japheth, which I call the Semitic or the Middle East in ancient days, and then Europe, because what birthed from that is Islam and Catholicism or whatever, or a mainstream Christianity versus following the red words in your heart, not even following who I am in the heart with clarity. And so Noah did what he did. Well, then you go further down the line, as I told you before, Aaron's got 613 laws. If you had the first 3 from the covenant, the 10 commandments, you get 616, the mark of a man. All through the law of Aaron is murder, 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 kill, 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 stone, 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 which then manifested later until the times of John the Baptist, when John the Baptist was trying to bring forth peace and love. If you really read the books of John, and something interesting about John, I'm going to bring it up real quick. There's 3 books in John, John 1, 2, and 3. So I conceptualize that by meaning like this: Yehohanan, which was the first, or Yohanan, what he ended up doing was he tried to preach and they slew him because of the law, right? So then you go later down the line, you have William Tyndale. You guys can look him up if you need to. He tried to fight the powers that be, the Pope, and ended up getting killed because of it. Well, then you have, I call Yehohanan First John. I call William Tyndale Second John through the Spirit. And then Third John, I call Martin Luther King. He taught to love everybody and unify. It don't matter who you are. One day in the future, I have a dream we'll all be loving. Well, then you look at me. I am John on Patmos, and the people be like, well, you put a name before you know. My name is Juan, which is basically a transliteration of John. Um, and then you go even further. You have Yohanan and or Yehohanan, and then Yehanan, Juan and John. I am gracious, you are gracious. Do love me with all your heart and love others with all your heart the same. But not me. I'm saying you say that. That's how you're supposed to say that. So then people like an island on Patmos. I'm in a fortress revealing things, if that makes sense. So back to the original thing that at hand or whatever. Um, so call it instead of Patmos, call it Jerusalem, if you will. So back to the idea at hand, Aaron had 616 laws. They removed the first three, trying to be clever. The mark of a man, to kill for the law, unrest. And so then you go down the line, Peter and Paul. If you really pay attention to Peter and Paul, Peter's only got 2 books. That's really symbolic. And what Peter did was, he's the Judas. He took that stuff to Rome after being told not to preach to the Gentiles. But the thing about a Gentile is it's not because they're Roman. He didn't circumcise the heart in that book. In that book, you're supposed to basically give the 10 Commandments clearly with clarity and then the spirit guide, so to speak. What they did was they wrote a bunch of law and taught people what to do, which manifested into giant religions that captured and hunted people, so to speak. Peter and Paul, Catholicism and Protestantism. Because look, pay attention to this. Peter and Paul fought with each other, right? Well, what did the Catholics and the Protestants do? You all say, how is Greek Christianity? How does it tie together? The Greek God and the Greek Bible is theos. The Martin Luther resurrected theology with Protestantism. See how clever that is? If you go look up the Greek flag and the Israeli flag right now, the only difference is one is a cross and one is stripes. So I'm just trying to show people how these things manifest into life or whatever. So the dragon or whatever is the Pharaoh, so to speak. And then what do? They take the Pharaoh knocks the first 3 stars out of the sky. So I said it's all the 10 commandments. They take those first 3 commandments, the put nothing before who I am, idol nothing, or put no gods before who I am, idol nothing in the heavens, the earth, or the sea or beneath. Don't bow down to them or worship them. Don't take who I am in vain. Don't take my name in vain. Basically a shorter version. And what they do is they take that and become like gods and take the other 7 commandments and strike with them like heads or whatever. And so what they do is, John the Baptist came teaching to love your brother. He who hates your brother is murder. So he messed up murder, right? They messed up thou shalt not kill on the so the beast heads, if it says thou shalt not kill, but you're killing for the law, it's striking for that, right? That doesn't make sense. So John the Baptist came to take that away, but they killed him and tried to, that man in that book or whatever, or whatever, however the story goes, because I looked that stuff up, and there was a man named Yehohanan ben Hagios that was crucified. People trying to bury this in history. Shimon Japheth, they're trying to cover it with names, God and Allah. And then the seed, Judaism, who keeps pushing Hashem instead of the name. And so then, I am sorry for anybody who feels offended for that, and who I am is confident that I am here for all, and anybody can change or have a healthy life. It's not religion that's evil. It's what comes out of a man's mouth that's harmful, that can hurt others. That is not what I like. There we go. So then basically, there you go. You have the dragon, which has the 10 horns, the 10 commandments. And then what they do is they use the 7 commandments to kill over. If you break the law, she was an adulterer, they try to stone her or whatever. See, they try to kill for the law. So then you go down to the beast, the 4 nations that attack Judah combined to a mega beast. You have Persia or Babylon, Persia. Greece has 4 heads. So if you do history, Greek split 4 ways, like 4-headed leopard. And then the great and dreadful beast, Rome. And so then Rome was getting tore off, but then they converted into Roman Catholicism and took over it. And so Peter and Paul would be the beast that comes from the flesh or whatever, because not Peter and Paul, good and evil, but yeah, Peter and Paul, Catholicism and Protestantism. and what was birthed out of that. And so then you have that idea where those two religions came forth and did a whole bunch of bloody stuff in the past. If you do a research in history, and they was doing it for good and evil. Now there was only two. Remember, don't follow the law. Don't follow the law no more. It's just don't be evil. Don't be evil. Don't be adulterers. Sometimes even I'm confused and I don't know what's going on. But I'm gonna bring Titus and Barnabas, who are Roman kings and gods on the mountain. Also, you see what I'm saying? Adding perpetual foolishness to an Ouroboros of destruction since the beginning. But they killed over good and evil. You see what I'm saying? Like the dragon, they spoke the foolishness. And so, if you look at the whole beast as a total, the scarlet beast that came out, or that hovered over the waters or whatever, well, pay attention to what I'm about to say. Most of these holy books have the 10 Commandments. So now Babylon is now the dragon. The beast is what comes out of people because of the Babylon that's in people's heads, and it causes them to profess falsely using fake gods' names, fear and torment, punishment and destruction, and prophesying against themselves and others, and not realizing it because they're covered with names and religions. They're hiding behind the trees, Adam, so to speak, and Eve, the spirit and flesh that are terrified of themselves. So what I'm basically saying is Babylon attacked first, right? Remember Judah? And then they put all this religion and rabbis and all this stuff on top of the 10 Commandments. Now, if you go do research in Judaism, look up how many Jewish messiahs exist. I'm telling you, each time somebody touches this, a messiah comes out. Do they not? Like, look at Muhammad, look at Peter, look at Paul, look at all these different people coming out. So then you go, and Babylon's the beast, or Babylon sits on top of the beast, because the reason the beast is the 10 Commandments is, like I told you, they use it to kill. So the reason why this is important to understand is that when Babylon attacked Judah, they got the law, right? Boom. Now you have that sect, then, which is one of the heads. Then you have another nation, boom, Persia attacks, gets it, becomes murderous and violent for the law. It's another head. Then Greece comes and does their things. That's for the heads. Then the Rome does too. So then, remember, at a lot of time, it'll come out the pit, like when Daniel was talking about. So then, after all those nations were attacked and all that murder and stuff happened, then it spread throughout the world, Roman Catholicism and Protestantism and all these different, Islam and all these other different major religions that was killing. I have an article in one of my videos that talked about how 400 million Hindus were slain over time because of the Islamic Empire. But then even further, the Aryans did, long before that, came down and was attacking the Indus Valley and stuff. And so just a whole bunch of perpetuated violence. And so ultimately the beast's horns are the 10 Commandments. And even if you pay attention to so the dragon knocks a third of the stars out the sky and they hit the flesh. Boom. They put in the 10 Commandments. Thou shalt not put any gods before the Lord God, before Allah, before Jesus. You see what I'm saying? They're making Nephilim in gods instead of the name, so it can rest aside and work. And then you go even further. The beast, 3 of the horns, the 10 Commandments, the first 3 turn into 1, and that God speaks for them. So then look what ends up happening. They put these gods on the 10 Commandments, and then you're following the spirit to and fro, and you're losing who I am, if that makes sense. And then the 2 horns, they got rid of the covenant, Peter and Paul, and then said, just follow me for good and evil. You see what I'm saying? So that just basically describes all that stuff. And the reason the Lamb walks over the fiery waters with the saints, where he's going to put the seals on their foreheads and stuff, the name, I am who I am, send me, and then the 10 Commandments. And then they're like, people in my videos keep saying, who gives you authority? Somebody said, who manifests you, and all this other stuff. I am. You know, see the ark that rides over the fiery waters? I'm not going to bow down to none of y'all condemnation and stupidness and stupidity. If you pay attention to the 3 angels that was on the top of the vine, the first one, thou shalt not have no gods before who I am. The second one, no gods and no idols. No, the second one, thou shalt not bow to them. So reaping all the other stuff off the vine. And then the third one with fire, do not take who I am in vain. And then it clears the earth, so to speak. And then who I am can rest inside. So I'm not saying be an empty. I'm saying it's your journey. When I say I am now, you say that. People make fun of people that are painters and visual and all this. They put titles on stuff. Women are to do this, and men are to do this. If I do something, a man just did it. I'm not going to go out my way and be like, oh, I'm a woman. So if I talk about fairies and violins and picking flowers, a man is doing that. You don't look at that man and attack him and say he's a weak gay and all that other stuff. You guys are creating concepts from the world that then attack and then cause people to become afraid and angry and create boxes that lock themselves away from the world and or join the world and then are tormented by other men's words and teachings. And so then if you pay attention, Most of these angels are sayings and phrases from either the Ten Commandments or different words that help people live. You know what I'm saying? I was trying to tell y'all, it's the word. In the beginning was the word was who I am. So try to pay attention if you can and understand and give life to others when you can, because words of death and contracts of death come very easily and quickly if the tongue just keeps blah, 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 blah. You have to be careful with the things that you do and say, especially with religion, because it can be like a cage that can torment others. So I am is free, and who I am sets free. I am is king, and so who I am is the king of kings. I am not talking about Yehanan. I am talking about everybody, if that makes sense. So, stay blessed, stay friendly. And so when I say I am the King of Kings, I'm talking about over the me. You all have that possibility. That's why I said we're all faithful and true, because before it's all over and through, I dare not talk about any end. So don't let me pretend. I mean, the fire that doesn't consume comes down, and then no longer will people be confounded by the silly things that are professed by other nouns that lead to us to do things that are absurd because we've been possessed by their foolish verbs. Stay blessed.